In 1990, a child of the British royal family lost her title simply because she married. Marina Ogilvy committed no crime. She broke no rules. She violated no protocol. And yet, after that wedding, she was no longer addressed as HRH. Princess Alexandra is known as one of the most discreet and proper figures in the British royal family. She spent her life keeping everything in its rightful place, every role, every boundary. However, her children did not follow the same path. One chose to disappear almost entirely from public view. The other became one of the very few willing to say out loud what the royal family never says: the same family, the same beginning. Yet each answered the monarchy in a way that could not have been more different. This is not a story about privilege. It is a story about the cost of choice and about what happens after the spotlight fades. Today we pull back the curtain on the true story of the children of Princess Alexandra. Number 2. James Robert Bruce Ogilvy was born on June 29, 1964, in London. He is the eldest child of Princess Alexandra, one of the most disciplined and consistently working members of the British royal family, and a granddaughter of King George V, part of the generation that helped shape Britain in the 20th century. From the moment he was born, James occupied a position in which status existed even before personal choice. For most of her life, Princess Alexandra lived a private life, adhering closely to discipline and royal protocol. But behind closed doors, the rhythm of family life was different. To James, his mother was not a public symbol. She was someone who carefully maintained a boundary between royal duty and the private lives of her children. It was within that boundary that James's early years took shape. His childhood unfolded mainly in London and on family estates, away from the public schedule of his mother. He did not accompany her on long official tours. He rarely appeared at representational events. Instead of balconies, motorcades, and ceremonies, his memories were tied to a quiet domestic life, where public presence was never an expectation. James's rare appearances were not accidental. They reflected a consistent family decision to keep the children away from the center of attention. James was educated at Eton College, a school long associated with generations of sons from Britain's established families. There, tradition and discipline shaped a path that often seemed predetermined. Yet at Eton, James held no special position. He studied, lived, and graduated alongside other students without any public role attached to his name. After Eton, James continued his studies at Magdalen College, Cambridge. This was a path that had led many before him into the military, politics, or public office. But for James, his years at Cambridge marked something else. Not an entrance into representation, but the quiet conclusion of one phase, before turning toward a direction rarely chosen by those of royal descent. During this period, a different interest began to surface. James became involved with antiques, art, and historical objects, not in ceremonial halls or symbolic galleries, but in ordinary professional settings where value was measured by provenance, condition, and the market. And there, his life took a new course. After leaving Cambridge, James did not enter the military, politics, or any representational role. Instead, he stepped into a world governed by expertise rather than lineage. In the early 1990s, he joined Sotheby's, one of the world's oldest and most influential auction houses. James began in specialist roles within a competitive environment where background could not replace skill. He worked with European art collections, learning appraisal, valuation, and the mechanics of the international auction market. Reputation there was built on results, not heritage. This period marked a quiet turning point. By the mid-1990s, James Ogilvy had become one of the very few direct royal descendants working full-time in the international auction industry. His name was not associated with the royal family. It was associated with professional expertise. In major art centers, he was known as a specialist, not a symbol. That choice carried consequences. As an adult, James rarely appeared at major royal events. He did not take on representational duties. He did not speak to the media. His marriage and family life remained private. The British press rarely mentioned him because he did not position himself in a way that invited attention. After 2000, as his career at Sotheby's stabilized, James continued working across European markets. His life moved between art centers, collectors, and auction rooms, in a rhythm disconnected from public visibility. In 2004, his father, Angus Ogilvy, passed away. This closed a chapter within the family, but it did not draw James into public view. During the same period, attention gradually shifted toward his younger sister Marina, whose choices and statements became more visible. James remained outside the frame. In the end, James Ogilvy did not return to public life, nor did he assume a new role. He stayed within the spaces he had chosen: auction rooms, galleries, a professional life measured by objects and value, not ceremony. While many names in the family are tied to image and ritual, James remained elsewhere, quietly, consistently, and unchanged. Number 1. Marina Ogilvy was born on July 31, 1966, in London. She was the second child of Princess Alexandra and Angus Ogilvy. In a family accustomed to appearing before the public with propriety and silence, Marina was one of the rare figures who did not remain entirely within that space. As she grew up, Marina was not attached to any clearly defined representational role. She appeared enough to be recognized, but did not fit into the familiar framework of royal protocol. There were no official tours, no series of formal patronages. Marina existed as an individual carrying royal status, but standing outside the paths that had already been laid out. In 1990, Marina married Paul Mowat. The wedding was not a major royal event. There was no balcony appearance, no dense ceremonial ritual. However, everything changed very quickly afterward. Marina no longer used her royal title. There was no formal announcement. No new role was assigned. From that point on, she no longer stood within the familiar ceremonial structure of her family. Life after that did not pass in silence. Marina began to appear in the press, not to represent anyone, but to speak about herself. She spoke about daily life, about money, about having to manage things she had never previously needed to consider. These words were not prepared as statements. They appeared sporadically, but they were enough to draw attention. For the first time, someone very close to the royal family spoke about life after the loss of ceremonial protection. Not through official releases, not through spokespeople, just a person describing what was happening to her. Marina's interviews were not frequent, but each appearance provoked a reaction. She did not attack. She did not deny her origins. She spoke slowly, selectively, often stopping at the point of describing consequences. The public listened, then debated. Some saw it as rare honesty. Others felt uneasy when private matters were brought into public view. At one point, Marina openly shared the financial difficulties she and her small family faced. She spoke about weighing expenses, about entirely ordinary pressures. For many people, it was the first time they had heard a member of the royal family speak so directly about money. Those statements did not make Marina a figure of consensus. They placed her in a sensitive position. But from that moment on, one thing became clear. Marina was willing to say what was usually left unsaid. Her presence was not limited to the press. She appeared in public discussions, speaking about protocol, about status, and about the limits royal structures place on personal life. She did not issue grand declarations. She did not call for reform. She simply described her experience and allowed others to draw their own conclusions. Marina did not try to speak for her family. She did not speak for her generation. She spoke only for herself, within the boundaries she chose, and accepted the reactions that followed. In 2004, her father, Angus Ogilvy, passed away. That moment closed a chapter. However, Marina did not assume a new representative role. She continued to appear as she had before, sharing her sense of loss in her own way, without exceeding what she was willing to say. In the years that followed, Marina Ogilvy maintained a selective relationship with the media. She did not appear often, but when she did, it was always for a specific reason: life after protocol, status, and everyday reality, the responsibility that comes with speaking publicly. She did not try to soften public opinion. She did not avoid it either. This position set Marina apart within Princess Alexandra's family. While others chose silence or remained within predefined roles, Marina accepted the consequences of speaking. She did not hold a stable title tied to her name. But each time she appeared, the public knew what would follow. She would speak. Over time, Marina Ogilvy came to represent a different kind of presence, not based on protocol, not based on silence, but on words and the responsibility that comes with them. Her statements did not change the structure of the monarchy, but they forced people to pause and to listen.